So hello everyone, today I played one more game against a 1946 rated player from Turkey. So here the game started with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, transferring to an Italian game, and bishop e7, preventing knight coming from g5 square. And they castled knight f6, knight c3, and d6. So here they played d4, I took on d4, knight took on d4 and castled. So here they played bishop f4, and here I captured on d4, queen captured, and bishop e6. And my intention was, if they capture on e6, I capture with the pawn and has a threat to push to e5 square. So here they played knight e5, knight d5 I mean, and I captured with the knight, and they captured back, and bishop f6, attacking the queen. And of course, if they push on e5, I will just capture, and if they capture back, I'll just take on d5, which means they will lose a piece. So here they played queen c4, so I played bishop d5, and they answered with the queen. So I took on b2 and rook b1, and here bishop e5. So they took and I took back, and they took on b2. So I decided to took on d5, and if they take back with the, of course they took back. And here I studied a little bit, and I thought my in the end game, the rook activity, especially the rook endgame, rook activity is the number one priority. So I tried to activate my rook by playing rook d8. So here they defended, and rook up to d7, defending my c7 square. And my opponent played rook fb1, trying to checkmate me in the back rank, of course. And here I just moved my king to the center. So they check on b8, and I took, they took, and king e7. So here my opponent played rook b7, of course, trying to capture on a7. And currently I cannot push c6 to defend my a pawn, because they will just capture on c6 with the pawn, and I cannot capture back, because they will just take and queen on b8. My king is too far away, defending that pawn from promotion. So I decided to, since I cannot defend my a pawn, I tried pushing the a pawn. And here my opponent played rook a7 to attack my a6 pawn. So here now I have a chance to push my c pawn, because if they take with the pawn, I will of course take the rook, and if they take with the rook, I will just capture with my king, and I will win this these two hanging pawns in the center, and their king is, see, far away from the center, so I think it will be an advantage for black to win. And my opponent just grabbed the a6 pawn, and I took on d5, and they took back on d5, and I took on d5. So here my opponent played king f1, of course, to escape from a back rank mate. So I spent some time here because this is a critical point to what to do with my rook activity. I mean, what to do with my rook in the endgame, and I have to take care about their a pawn, otherwise they will queen, and it's very hard for me to stop that pawn with my king, especially since my king is cut on the 7th rank by their rook. So I decided to bring my rook to the first file and get behind the pawn first. That was the first step, my plan. And they played knight e6, I mean king e3, and here I thought a while and tried to make my opponent a weakening move, make a weakening move on their king side pawns. So I checked once and asked their king where to go, and they answered with the king d3. So I attacked the h pawn, they have to defend h3, and attacked the g pawn and g3, and here I again attacking the f pawn. So of course they cannot move forward with their pawn, so they back to defend their f pawn. So here I check again here, and back to the a pawn, a1 square. So here they tried king e4 to attack my e pawn since it's hanging, and I have to defend my pawn. So here king f3 they played. So here I decided to advance my pawn. I thought my opponent will be playing king g2, but they decided to play f4. So here I pushed my pawn. Actually, first activating my rook, and after they played f3, I thought a while whether to push the pawn or taking the pawn. Pushing the pawn was one option, but I could not see any line to promote my pawn. So let's say, like, if I played here, and my opponent's answer would be, I guess, rook a3, and I have no way to defend my pawn. So I here captured, and they captured back, and attacking the h3 pawn again and making them to make a weakening move. So after that I played h5, kinda grabbing g4 square for the future future improvement of my king, maybe. and here they played a4. I get behind and a5, and rook a4 was cutting their king on the third rank. So second mission complete. And here they check, and I moved king f6, and here they played a6 again. So I decided to move my king to e6, and here of course they are trying to promote their queen, and rook a8 they played. So here I decided to play g6, and here my opponent pushed, and here I played, after a long thought, I decided to move my king to f5, because I was afraid of rook f8, and if I take on a7 they will capture with check. I was afraid, but actually this is not working, because with capturing the a7 I'm defending the f7 pawn. So they here decided to move their king, since they cannot move their rook. But actually here my opponent made a wrong decision, because this a7 pawn they cannot defend anymore, but here is more threat of to losing their kingside pawns. Maybe they should have played maybe e8, rook e8 after capturing, like here, rook e8, and after capturing they play maybe rook e3 to defend their king from side checks. But my opponent played there, and I of course played king g4 to attacking their g3 pawn, and preparing to check from the side. And here I check, and my opponent played, and I attacked the pawn. I took the pawn, I mean, and king d4, and king takes h4, and king c5, and here I decided to my farthest advanced pawn to move, freed my farthest advanced pawn. So here my opponent played king b6 to defend their pawn, so they can move the rook, and here I played h5 and h8, and here I pushed the pawn again. Here my opponent played, and actually at this point I already calculated that my three connected pawns are of course better than a rook. So I took, they took, and I played g5. I also thought about moving my h-pawn once advanced, but there was possibility of checking from the side. Let's say like rook, I mean pawn h2 and rook a3 check, king up, rook check, king up, rook check, and king back, rook check. And this way maybe my opponent could have checked me forever, but actually this wouldn't work. But I decided to move my g pawn to defend my h pawn. So here my opponent played rook check from the a3 square, and here, and this the following moves are just forcing, and